Prologue, Abandoned Roots. At 10 years old, I learned that love was conditional. The day my parents abandoned me, leaving me on my uncle's doorstep with nothing but a worn backpack and a note that said, "We can't anymore," something inside me crystallized into stone. His uncle, Marcus, took me in without question, asking nothing in return except that I worked hard in school. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was forever indebted, that every meal, every uniform, every day under that roof was a debt accumulating interest I could never repay. Chapter 1. The Gifted Outcast. I was gifted, though I'd never admit it. In school, I only needed to read something once or listen to a teacher's explanation to grasp concepts that left my classmates struggling for weeks. Numbers, logic, patterns, these made sense to me. Human emotions, however, remained an impenetrable mystery. Teachers adored me. He was respectful, diligent, and genuinely curious. Students gravitated toward me, mistaking my calm demeanor for confidence. He had friends, or at least people who called me friend, but I kept everyone at arm's length. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. In junior high, I developed feelings for a girl named Sarah. She had kind eyes and laughed easily. I spent weeks working up the courage to speak to her beyond casual greetings, imagining scenarios where I might confess my feelings. But when I discovered my best friend, Tom, also liked her, I stepped aside without a word. He watched from a distance as Tom nervously asked Sarah out, saw her smile and accept, and felt something hollow settle in my chest. His friend's happiness mattered more than my own desires, or perhaps I simply didn't believe I deserved happiness in the first place. The real betrayal came in my second year. A girl named Michelle approached me after class one day, her cheeks flushed with what seemed like genuine nervousness. "I like you," she'd said simply. "Would you maybe want to go to the festival together?" For a brief, dangerous moment, I allowed himself to hope. He said yes. They exchanged messages for 2 weeks, making plans, sharing small details about their days. He found himself smiling at my phone, feeling something warm and unfamiliar bloom in my chest. Then I found her in a corner of the schoolyard, pressed against another boy, kissing me, with an enthusiasm that made I's stomach turn. She saw me, her eyes widening in surprise, but I simply turned and walked away without confronting her. Another brick added to the wall around my heart. After that, I stopped trying. Emotions were unpredictable, dangerous things. Better to focus on what I could control: my grades, my skills, my future. Chapter 2. Senior High and Hidden Talents. Senior high brought new challenges and unexpected recognition. I enrolled in the inaugural IT program, only 20 students in the entire department. His natural aptitude for programming and systems thinking set me apart immediately. While others struggled with basic coding concepts, I wrote elegant solutions that made even the instructors pause in admiration. When the school announced the departmental awards ceremony at the end of the first year, I won nothing. The overall Best Student Award went to someone from a more established program, business management, with its prestige and long history. He didn't complain or protest. Recognition wasn't why I worked hard. The second year proved different. He won Best Student in my department, though I dismissed it as luck rather than skill when my classmates congratulated me. "You're a genius, man," David, one of my few actual friends, said as they left the ceremony. "I'm not special," I insisted. "I just pay attention." "You wrote that database management system in one weekend. The one the school is actually using now. That's not just paying attention." I shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. What my classmates didn't understand, what I never told anyone, was that my brain worked differently. Whenever I encountered a problem I couldn't solve during the day, I'd wake up the next morning with a solution, crystallized in my mind, as if my subconscious had worked through it while I slept. It might take a night or a week, but eventually the answer would emerge, fully formed. The same phenomenon occurred with games. He'd pick up a new one, chess, strategic. Video games, even sports, and excel on my first try, as if muscle memory existed before. The muscles even moved. He had two close friends in the program, David and Marcus Jr., who went by MJ to avoid confusion with I's uncle. They formed an unlikely trio, spending lunch breaks debating code efficiency and dreaming about the companies they'd build someday. They were the only people I truly trusted, though even they didn't know about my past or my living situation. The only girl in their class, Jennifer, complicated the social dynamics. She was attractive, and knew it, dating half the boys in their year while flirting shamelessly with anyone who showed interest. At first, I felt drawn to her charisma and confidence. She had a way of making whoever she talked to feel like the most important person in the room. But patterns emerged. She never stayed with anyone longer than a few weeks. Conversations always circled back to what someone could do for her. Help with assignments, rides home, money for lunch. I watched and recognized the manipulation. He lost interest immediately, though Jennifer tried several times to add me to her collection. Her friends proved worse. A girl named Lisa borrowed 5,000 yen from me with a sob story about a family emergency, promising to repay me by the end of the week. 3 weeks later, I overheard her bragging to friends about the new purse she'd bought. He never confronted her. I simply added the loss to my mental ledger and refused any future requests. Another friend, Raina, approached me with sweet words and batting eyelashes, asking if I'd help her with a special project that required funding. I had already heard from other students that she'd run the same scam on half the school, regardless of gender. He politely declined and made himself scarce whenever she came near. I had many flaws, but being a simp wasn't one of them. The moment I sensed manipulation, I withdrew, ghost quiet and impossible to reach. His walls grew higher with each attempted betrayal, until by graduation, they were nearly impenetrable. Chapter 3: University and Self-Improvement. University meant computer science, naturally. I commuted from my uncle's house, maintaining my routine of invisibility. He attended lectures, completed assignments with minimal effort, and disappeared before anyone could invite me to socialize. He was just another face in lecture halls of 200 students, exactly as I preferred. But my background in IT from senior high gave me an undeniable edge. Word spread quickly that I could debug code in minutes that left others stumped for days. Students sought my help, and I gave it freely, explaining concepts with patience I'd learned from my favorite teachers. But I never stayed long enough to forge real friendships, always slipping away before conversations turned personal. Weekends belonged to self-improvement. I set him self-programming challenges, using AI tools to generate increasingly complex problems that pushed my boundaries. He taught himself Python, then JavaScript, then C++, Java, and Rust. When programming grew monotonous, I turned to languages of a different sort: Spanish, Mandarin, Japanese. He studied with the same methodical intensity one applied to everything, completing online courses and practicing with language exchange partners who knew nothing about me beyond my username. For fun, I mastered Morse code. It appealed to my love of patterns, the elegant simplicity of dots and dashes conveying complex information. His entertainment diet consisted of Korean dramas, anime, manga, and web novels. He consumed stories voraciously, drawn to narratives about people who understood emotions better than I ever could. The characters felt things deeply, loved passionately, hurt profoundly. Through them, I experienced secondhand what seemed impossible in my own life. Inspired by the stories I consumed, I started writing my own novels. He posted them anonymously on web fiction platforms, crafting tales of people navigating complex emotions and relationships. His readers loved my work, praising my insight into human nature. The irony wasn't lost on me. I could write convincingly about emotions I'd never felt understand fictionally what eluded me in reality. Money remained a constant stressor. His uncle never complained, but I saw the strain in Marcus's tired eyes, the way I worked overtime to support them both. I took a part-time job at a campus cafe, serving coffee to students who barely acknowledged my existence. The pay was minimal, but it was earned through my own effort rather than borrowed from someone else's generosity. One day, during a slow shift, my friend James from my programming class stopped by. They'd worked together on a group project and maintained a casual friendship built on mutual respect and a shared love of problem-solving. "Bro," James said, sliding into a seat at the counter, "you're brilliant with systems and patterns. Have you ever thought about applying that to financial markets?" "Stocks?" I asked, wiping down the espresso machine. "Stocks, trading, investments, all of it. It's just patterns, right? Billions of individual decisions creating predictable trends. You could figure it out faster than anyone I know." "I don't have money to invest." "Start small. Paper trading, learn the systems, and read up on financial IQ and emotional intelligence. Understanding how people make decisions about money is half the battle." The idea intrigued I. That night, I downloaded books on trading strategies, market psychology, and behavioral economics. During semester breaks, between shifts at the cafe, I devoured the material with my characteristic intensity. He opened a practice trading account, testing theories without risking real money, watching how markets moved and learning to read the patterns beneath the chaos. The markets fascinated me. They were like programming, but instead of computer logic, I was working with human psychology at massive scale. Fear and greed, hope and despair, all quantified in price movements and volume charts. It was beautiful in its own way, this mathematical expression of collective human emotion. Chapter 4. The day everything changed. The day started ordinarily. I left early for a morning lecture on database architecture, carrying my laptop bag and reviewing notes on my phone as I walked to the bus stop. The weather was pleasant, the street relatively quiet at this early hour. Then I heard it, a scream, high-pitched and terrified. Pure instinct. Eyes had snapped up. A little girl, no older than 6, had chased a red ball into the street. She stood frozen in the middle of the road, clutching the ball to her chest, her eyes wide with fear. A black sedan rounded the corner too fast. The driver was looking down, distracted by my phone, completely unaware of the child in my path. I saw the exact moment the man would look up, calculate the stopping distance, realize it was too late. The scenario played out in my mind in the span of a heartbeat. Metal meeting small body, a life ending before it truly began. He didn't think. His body moved on pure instinct, the backpack sliding from my shoulder as I sprinted forward. His legs pumped harder than they ever had, the world narrowing to a single point of focus. He reached the girl just as the driver looked up, just as the brakes screamed in futile protest. I scooped the child into my arms, her small body surprisingly light, and twisted to shield her with my own body. He felt the impact more than heard it, a crushing force against my left side that lifted me off my feet. The world spun in a confused blur of sky and asphalt. Pain exploded through my ribs, my shoulder, my hip. The girl's scream rang in my ears, then faded as darkness rushed in to claim me. His last conscious thought was relief. She was safe. That had to be enough. Chapter 5. A New World. I woke to unfamiliar sounds, machines beeping in steady rhythm, voices speaking rapid Japanese. His body felt distant, wrapped in cotton and haze. Pain lingered somewhere, beyond the medication, waiting patiently for my full awareness to return. His eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the soft lighting. The hospital room was immaculate, nothing like the public facilities I'd visited with my uncle when Marcus had broken my ankle. This place spoke of wealth, private room, advanced equipment, art on the walls. A small girl sat beside my bed, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. The girl I'd saved. She wore a pretty dress, and held a stuffed rabbit, clutching it the same way she'd clutched that Red Bull. The moment my eyes focused on her, she gasped. "You awake?" She pressed the call button frantically, speaking in Japanese I couldn't follow. "Where's my phone?" I asked, my voice rough as sandpaper. "I need to tell my uncle what happened." The girl blinked at me, surprised by my calm tone. Before she could respond, the door burst open. A nurse entered first, checking my vitals with professional efficiency. Then came a distinguished couple in their 50s, the woman in an elegant dress, the man in an expensive suit. They spoke rapidly to the nurse in Japanese before switching to English. "For my benefit, Mr. I," the older man said, bowing deeply in a gesture that seemed both formal and genuinely grateful. "I am Takeshi Yamamoto, and this is my wife, Akiko. You saved our youngest daughter, Yuki. We cannot express our gratitude enough." "You've been unconscious for 2 days," Akiko added gently, her English impeccable. "We had to bring you with us to Japan. We had urgent business here that couldn't be delayed, and the doctors cleared you for transfer. We've been monitoring your condition around the clock. We'll arrange your return immediately, of course, along with compensation for—" "Wait," I interrupted, processing the information. "I'm in Japan." "Yes, Tokyo, specifically, our private medical facility." I looked around the room again, noting details I'd missed. The view of Tokyo's skyline. Through the window, the Japanese text on the medical equipment, the subtle differences in design aesthetics. He was in another country. He'd been unconscious for 2 days. He'd missed lectures, probably lost my job at the cafe, and my uncle must be worried sick. "Okay," I said simply. The family exchanged glances, clearly surprised by my composure. Young Yuki burst into fresh tears, apologizing repeatedly in a mix of Japanese and English. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's my fault you got hurt." The ball went into the street, and I didn't look in. "Yuki," I said quietly, and she hiccuped into silence. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "Then everything's fine. I'm glad you're safe." The simple acceptance made her cry harder, but these seemed like different tears. "Huh." Mother pulled her into a hug, murmuring comfort. Takeshi moved closer to the bed, my expression serious. "Mr. I, please understand that. You must allow us to repay you. In our family, there is a tradition, a debt of life must be honored. You saved our daughter's life. Whatever you need, whatever you want, it's yours. Money, property, education, employment, anything. That's really not necessary." "It is necessary," Akiko insisted firmly, though her tone remained warm. "You risked your life for a stranger's child. That deserves recognition and gratitude. Please, name your price." I considered. He was broke, living on instant noodles and my uncle's generosity, wearing clothes I'd owned since high school. His laptop was held together with duct tape and prayers. A chance like this wouldn't come again. "A house and a new laptop would be helpful," I said carefully. "My current laptop keeps crashing, and it would be nice to have a stable place for my uncle to retire to eventually." Silence filled the room. Takeshi and Akiko stared at me as if I'd spoken in an alien language. "That's all?" Takeshi asked slowly. "That would be very helpful, yes." "Young man." Akiko leaned forward, her expression a mix of disbelief and concern. "Do you understand who we are?" "Not really, no." Takeshi actually laughed at that, a surprised bark of sound. "We are the Yamamoto family. We own Yamamoto Industries, one of the largest conglomerates in Japan. Electronics, construction, finance, technology. We have interest across multiple sectors. We're among the 50 wealthiest families in the country." "Oh," I said. "Then, the house and laptop would still be appreciated." "You could ask for anything," Akiko emphasized. "Cars, a penthouse apartment, a position in our company with a 7-figure salary, full funding for any education you want. Investment capital. The house and laptop would be perfect, thank you." They seemed at a loss for how to respond to such modest requests from someone who'd saved their daughter's life. Before they could continue, the door opened again. A woman entered, and I's breath caught involuntarily. She was the most beautiful person I'd ever seen. Late 20s, with long black hair that fell past her shoulders, sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to catalog everything in a single glance, and an aura of absolute authority that made the already impressive room feel small. She wore a designer suit in charcoal gray that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, and she moved with the confidence of someone who'd commanded boardrooms since before she could legally drink. "This is our eldest daughter," Takeshi introduced, pride evident in my voice. "Sakura Yamamoto. She's the CEO of Yamamoto Industries." Sakura studied I with unsettling intensity, her gaze moving from my face to my bandaged shoulder to the monitors displaying my vital signs. Then she bowed, the gesture precise and formal. "Thank you for saving my sister," she said. Her voice was cool, professional, but something flickered in her eyes. Curiosity, perhaps, or calculation. "She's safe," I replied. "That's what matters." Still, Sakura straightened, and for just a moment, her carefully maintained composure cracked, revealing genuine gratitude beneath. "Thank you." Chapter 6. An Unexpected Proposal. Sakura visited me every day during my hospital stay. Her parents came frequently as well, bringing Yuki, who'd appointed herself my special guardian and entertainer. The little girl told me stories, showed me her drawings, and taught me basic Japanese phrases with the patient enthusiasm of a child who'd found a new friend. But Sakura's visits were different. She came in the evenings, after her workday ended, still dressed in her business attire. At first, they made polite conversation, how I was feeling, what the doctors said, whether I needed anything. But gradually, the conversations deepened. She asked about my studies, and I explained my computer science program with more enthusiasm than I'd intended. She listened with genuine interest, asking intelligent questions that revealed her own considerable technical knowledge. He asked about Yamamoto Industries, and she described the challenges of running a massive conglomerate at her age, the resistance from old guard board members who questioned her decisions based on her gender and youth rather than her results. They discovered shared frustrations, the weight of others' expectations, the loneliness of being ahead of their peers, the difficulty of trusting people who might want something from them. On the third evening, Sakura closed the door behind her with deliberate care and sat in the chair beside my bed with the posture of someone preparing for a difficult negotiation. She said, her tone businesslike, "I have a proposition for you. I already told your parents I don't need. Marry me." He blinked, certain the pain medication was causing hallucinations. "Excuse me. I need a husband, and you need security. It's a practical arrangement that would benefit us both." I stared at her, searching for signs of a joke. Her expression remained perfectly serious. "You're beautiful, successful, and clearly don't need to arrange marriage with a broke university student you just met. What's the real story?" Sakura smiled slightly, the first genuine expression I'd seen from her beyond the carefully maintained CEO mask. "You're perceptive. Most people wouldn't push back. They'd just accept the offer." "I'm not most people." "No, you're not." She leaned back in her chair, and for a moment, she looked tired. Not physically exhausted, but soul-weary in a way I recognized from my own mirror. "The truth is, I'm being forced into an arranged marriage with the son of a business partner. The arrangement was made when I was a child, long before I became CEO. I've been trying to dissolve it for years, but contracts and tradition bind me tighter than any legal document. And I'm your escape plan." "Precisely. If I'm already married, the arrangement becomes void. Japanese law and our family traditions both recognize prior marriage as a legitimate reason to break a betrothal. You'd be saving me, just as you saved Yuki." "No." Her eyebrows raised in surprise. "No. I don't want to spend the rest of my life being called a gold digger." I don't want people saying I took advantage of saving your sister to force you into marriage. And I definitely don't want your former fiancé or my family coming after me for ruining their business deal. Those are fair concerns. Besides, I added more quietly, looking away from her intense gaze, you don't love me. I don't love you. Marriage should mean something, shouldn't it? Sakura was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had lost its business edge, becoming something more human. You're an idealist. I'm a realist who wants to believe some things are sacred. Even after being abandoned, after being betrayed. She'd clearly done research on me, learned my history somehow, especially because of that. He met her eyes again. If I'm going to trust someone with something as serious as marriage, even a fake one, I need to believe it won't destroy me. When it ends, Sakura stood, smoothing her skate. I understand. I apologized for the inappropriate suggestion. She didn't visit the next evening, or the one after that. I told himself I was relieved that I'd made the right choice. But the room felt emptier without her sharp intelligence and unexpected vulnerability. On the 7th evening, she returned. I've thought about what you said, Sakura announced without preamble. You were right. My proposition was selfish and short-sighted. But I want to revise the terms. Sakura, let me finish. She sat down, and this time, her posture was less CEO and more regular. Person. 3 years. We marry. I break the arranged engagement, and after 3 years, we divorce. Unless we actually fall in love. Which probably won't happen, she added quickly. But if it does, naturally, we'd continue. No pressure, no expectations. Just an opening for possibility. I studied her. Why 3 years specifically? Long enough to be convincing as a real marriage. Short enough that you're not trapped forever if it doesn't work out. Long enough for the business alliance to dissolve and new partnerships to form. Short enough that we're both still young enough to start over. Afterward, I have conditions. Of course you do. I want freedom to build my own career. I won't be a kept man or trophy husband. I'll accept housing and educational support because I'd be stupid to refuse, but I'm starting my own business. No one interferes with my work or my decisions. Sakura nodded. Agreed. And if you fall in love with someone else during these 3 years, you tell me. Immediately. I'll help you handle it without scandal, help you end the marriage quietly. Same goes for me, though that's unlikely. Why unlikely? She asked, genuine curiosity in her tone. I don't really do emotions. Never have, probably never will. That makes 2 of us. She extended her hand across the space between them. 3 years, mutual benefit, possibility of more but no obligation. Deal. I looked at her hand. Elegant, businesslike, steady. He thought about my uncle, working overtime to support me. He thought about my cramped room, my dying laptop, the constant stress of money. He thought about being in a foreign country with no support system, dependent on the Yamamoto generosity. He thought about Sakura's tired eyes and the weight she carried on her shoulders, about the prison of expectations and tradition. Deal, I said, and shook her hand. The touch was brief, professional, but something passed between them in that moment, an understanding, perhaps, or the beginning of trust. Chapter 7, New Beginnings. The wedding was small, private, and oddly bureaucratic. They signed papers in a government office with only her parents, Yuki, and 2 lawyers as witnesses. Sakura wore a simple white dress. I wore a suit borrowed from Takashi that almost fit. There were no flowers, no music, no dramatic declarations. Just signatures on official documents that bound their lives together for the next 3 years. Afterward, they went to dinner at an expensive restaurant. Yuki chatted excitedly about having a new brother, while Takashi and Akiko made polite conversation about living arrangements and educational opportunities. We've prepared an apartment for you both, Takashi explained over the main course. Downtown Tokyo, near both the university and the Yamamoto Industries headquarters. 3 bedrooms, fully furnished. The staff will. We don't need staff, I interrupted. I can clean and cook. You cook? Akiko asked, surprised. I'm learning. YouTube is educational. Sakura hid a smile behind her wine glass. They'd agreed to present a united front to her parents, to make the marriage seem as genuine as possible. But in private, they'd barely move past polite strangers. The Yamamotos also provided I with a black card, no spending limit, linked to a family account. For expenses, Takeshi explained, handing over the piece of plastic that represented more money than I had seen in my entire life. Your family now. Use whatever you need. I stared at the card like it might explode. He'd never held anything worth more than a few $100. Now I had access to essentially unlimited funds. The feeling was more terrifying than empowering. That night, in the apartment that was now somehow my home, I opened a separate bank account. Secret, untraceable to the Yamamoto finances. Every yen I earned through my own efforts, freelance programming contracts, trading profits, consulting gigs, went into that account. He refused to become dependent on Yamamoto money, refused to become the kept man Ben would later accuse me of being. This was my safety net for when the 3 years ended and I'd need to stand on my own. Again. Chapter 8, Learning to Coexist. Living with Sakura was strange. They had separate bedrooms in opposite wings of the apartment, maintained their own schedules, and could go days with minimal interaction, beyond a polite good morning in passing. She worked 16-hour days at Yamamoto Industries, leaving before dawn and returning after dark. He attended classes at the prestigious university the Yamamoto had enrolled me in, studied in the apartment's second bedroom I'd converted into an office, and worked on my secret projects late into the night. They were like roommates who happened to be married, their lives running on parallel tracks that occasionally intersected at breakfast or Ray's shared dinners. But gradually, things shifted. It started when I decided to take cooking seriously. He'd always been self-sufficient by necessity, but living in an apartment with a professional kitchen inspired me to actually try. He watched cooking shows, followed YouTube tutorials, practiced techniques until my hands learned the muscle memory of a proper knife grip, the right heat for perfect the patience required for a good broth. One evening, Sakura came home to find me in the kitchen, surrounded by ingredients, attempting to make Japanese curry from scratch. You cook? She asked, startling me. I'm trying. It's not great yet. It smells amazing. He glanced at her, noting the exhaustion in her eyes, the slight slump in her usually perfect posture. Have you eaten? I was going to order something. Sit. This is almost ready. She hesitated, then settled at the kitchen counter, watching me work with an expression I couldn't quite read. When I placed the bowl in front of her, curry over rice, garnished the way the YouTube chef had demonstrated, she stared at it for a moment before taking a bite. This is really good, she said, genuine surprise in her voice. You don't have to sound so shocked. I didn't expect. She took another bite. Thank you. It became a routine. When I cooked, I made enough for 2. When Sakura came home, early enough, they ate together, initially in silence, then with gradually increasing conversation. She told me about her day, the board meeting where 3 old men questioned her decisions, the acquisition deal that fell through because the other CEO couldn't take her seriously, the exhaustion of proving herself over and over while men half as competent were given automatic respect. He told her about my classes, my programming projects, the patterns I saw in systems that others missed. He showed her the web novels I'd been writing, shy about sharing. Something so personal. She read them on her tablet during her commute, texting me. Reactions that made me smile despite himself. You understand people better than you think, she said one evening. It's easier in fiction. Real people are complicated. Real people are just stories still being written. They began asking each other for advice. She'd present me with a business problem, Should she invest in the emerging AI sector or focus on sustainable energy? He'd analyze it like code, pointing out patterns and risks she'd been too close to see. He'd show her my business plans for the tech company I was secretly building, and she'd identify the weak points in my strategy, suggest improvements with the casual expertise of Simeone who'd been playing corporate chess since childhood. You should diversify your investment approach, she said one night, reviewing my portfolio. You're too concentrated in tech. If the sector crashes, you lose everything. But tech is what I know. Knowing something doesn't mean betting everything on it. Hedge your risks. Invest in industries that move inverse to tech. When one falls, the other rises. He took her advice, adjusting my strategy, and watched my secret account grow steadily. As a result, in return, I helped her see her company through fresh eyes. You're trying to fight the old guard directly, I observed while she vented about a particularly frustrating board meeting. That's not a fight you can win with their rules. So what do I do? Change the game. Stop trying to prove you belong at their table. Build a new table where the old rules don't apply. Focus on innovation they can't understand. Markets they're too traditional to see. Make yourself indispensable, not acceptable. She implemented my suggestion, launching new divisions focused on emerging technologies and international markets. The old board members grumbled but couldn't argue with the results. They were becoming friends. I realized one evening while they debated the ethics of AI development over dinner I'd cooked. Real friends, not just contractual partners. She understood my need for solitude, but drew me out when isolation became unhealthy. He respected her ambition, but reminded her to rest when she pushed too hard. Thank you, she said that night, after they both retreated to their separate bedrooms. For what? For being exactly what I needed without trying to be anything else. I lay awake for a long time after that, staring at the ceiling, wondering when she'd become someone whose opinion mattered so much to me. Chapter 9. Building an Empire in Secret. While maintaining my role as a university student and Sakura's convenient husband, I poured my energy into building something of my own. He decided on cybersecurity, a field where my pattern recognition abilities and coding skills could create real value. The digital world was increasingly vulnerable. Major corporations, governments, hospitals, everyone was one sophisticated attack away from catastrophe. I saw the gaps in existing security systems, the predictable weaknesses that hackers exploited. Repeatedly, he could do better. Working from my home office, using VPNs and encrypted networks, I built what would become Nexus Security. The name came to me during one of my late-night coding sessions. A Nexus, a connection point, but also a fortress protecting those connections. His first product was a security suite that used AI-driven pattern recognition to identify threats before they manifested. Where traditional antivirus software looked for known malware signatures, my system predicted attack vectors based on behavioral patterns. It learned and adapted, becoming more effective with each attempted breach it stopped. He tested it first on my own systems, then offered it free to small businesses through anonymous forums. The feedback was immediate and enthusiastic. Within 2 months, I had 3,000 active users. Within 6 months, 20,000. He incorporated the company through a web of shell corporations and legal structures that obscured my identity. Sakura's assistant, a sharp woman named Keiko who asked no questions when properly compensated, handled the paperwork. To the world, Nexus Security's founder and CEO was a mystery, someone brilliant, reclusive, and impossible to track. I hired remote workers through freelance platforms, conducting all interviews via voice-altered calls. He built a team of 15 exceptional programmers, none of whom had met their boss or each other in person. They communicated through encrypted channels, worked on modular pieces of larger projects, and received generous compensation that ensured loyalty and discretion. His secret account grew exponentially. He'd started with a few thousand yen earned through small freelancing jobs. Within a year, I had several million. Within 18 months, I'd crossed into eight-figure territory. His trading algorithms, refined through obsessive testing, generated steady passive income. His cybersecurity contracts with corporations who had no idea they were hiring a university student provided the rest. He bought shares in emerging tech companies using the same pattern recognition that made me good at programming to identify startups poised for explosive growth. Some failed, but more succeeded spectacularly, multiplying my investments. Everything went into that secret account, not because I was hiding money from Sakura, though technically I was, but because I needed to know I could survive without the Yamamotos, that when the 3 years ended and the marriage dissolved, I wouldn't fall back into poverty and dependence. The irony wasn't lost on me. He'd married into wealth to escape an arranged marriage for her, but I was working himself to exhaustion to escape that very wealth. Perhaps they were more alike than either had realized. What I didn't know was that Takeshi and Akiko had known about Nexus Security for months. Their financial analyst had flagged an anomaly, a new player in the cybersecurity market whose trading patterns, coding style, and strategic decisions bore an uncanny resemblance to their son-in-law's documented behaviors. They'd investigated discreetly, piecing together the puzzle through careful observation and access to resources I couldn't have anticipated. The shell companies, the encrypted transactions, the anonymous founder, all of it pointed to one conclusion. Should we tell Sakura? Akiko asked her husband one evening in their private study. Takeshi smiled, a glint of pride in my eyes. Not yet. He needs to do this on my own terms. Besides, I'm curious to see how far I'll go. He's remarkable. He is. More than I knows. They'd secretly begun helping me, never directly, but smoothing paths I didn't know existed. A government contract that Nexus Security won by chance. A competitor's bid that failed due to technical issues. Small interventions that accelerated my growth. Without leaving fingerprints, they'd come to love I not as a convenient solution to Sakura's problem, but as the son they'd never had, brilliant, humble, and utterly unaware of my own worth. Chapter 10, University Life and Ben. The second year of their arrangement brought I back to focused university attendance. He'd been taking classes throughout, but now I immersed himself in campus life more fully, joining advanced seminars and research projects that challenged even my considerable abilities. That's when I met Ben Nakamura. Their first encounter happened in the university cafeteria during lunch. I was eating alone, as usual, reviewing code on my laptop between bites of rice when a shadow fell across my table. "You," a voice said, dripping with theatrical disdain. I looked up to find a young man pointing at me with the kind of dramatic flair usually reserved for soap operas. He was handsome in an obvious way, expensive haircut, designer clothes, the kind of watch that cost more than a car. A small crowd had already gathered, sensing drama. "You're the one who stole my fiancé," Ben Nakamura announced loudly enough for half the cafeteria to hear. I took another bite of my lunch, chewed thoughtfully, and swallowed before responding. "Did you hear me?" "Yes." "You're standing 3 feet away and speaking loudly. It would be difficult not to hear you." Ben's face reddened. "You think you're clever? You're nothing. A nobody who got lucky. Saving a kid. You think that makes you worthy of Sakura?" "I don't think about it much, honestly." I returned my attention to my laptop. The dismissal enraged Ben more than any insult could have. Over the following weeks, I tried various tactics to provoke I into a reaction. Public humiliation attempts in classes they shared, spreading rumors about I being a gold digger and a kept man, trying to get me excluded from study groups and research projects. Nothing worked. I's academic record was spotless, my reputation among professors excellent, and my complete indifference to Ben's efforts drove the other man to distraction. "Why won't you react?" Ben demanded after one particularly elaborate scheme, planting evidence of plagiarism in I's submitted work, failed when professors immediately recognized it as a clumsy framed job. "Because you're not worth the energy," I replied calmly. gathering my materials. You're like a mosquito buzzing around my head. Annoying, but ultimately insignificant. The simple truth of it, delivered without heat or malice, stung worse than any dramatic confrontation. Ben's humiliation grew with each failed attempt to drag I down to my level. Meanwhile, I and Sakura's relationship continued to deepen in unexpected ways. They'd fallen into comfortable rhythms, shared breakfast when both had time, evening debriefs about their days, weekend afternoons where she taught me about business strategy and I showed her the elegance of well-written code. Ben's been harassing you, she said one evening. It wasn't a question. How did you know? I have sources. Do you want me to handle it? No. His harmless, just loud. Is my ex-fiancé trying to make your life miserable? I can end this with one phone call. I know you can. I looked at her, noting the protective fire in her eyes. But I don't need you to fight my battles. He's not actually hurting me, just embarrassing himself. You're too patient with people who don't deserve it. Maybe, but getting into conflicts with entitled rich kids isn't worth my time. I have actual work to do. She studied me for a long moment. You're different from anyone I've ever met. Is that good or bad? I'm still deciding. But her smile suggested she'd already made up her mind. Chapter 11. The Growing Connection. Year 2 of their marriage marked a shift neither of them acknowledged directly. The separate bedrooms remained separate. The agreement stayed unchanged. But something fundamental had transformed in how they existed around each other. Sakura started coming home earlier when she could, timing her schedule to coincide with I's cooking experiments. He'd progressed from simple dishes to complex techniques, sous vide, fermentation, molecular gastronomy concepts I'd learned from advanced cooking shows. You're getting good at this, she commented, watching me plate a dish with the precision of a professional chef. Pattern recognition applies to cooking too. Ratios, timing, temperature, it's all variables in a system. You make everything sound like programming. Isn't everything, in a way, just different languages expressing similar underlying logic? She laughed. He'd made her laugh more in the past year than anyone else in her life. The sound had become something I looked forward to, worked toward without consciously realizing it. They started watching movies together on weekends. Her choice one week, my the next. She introduced me to classic Japanese cinema and European art films. He showed her the anime and Korean dramas I loved, explaining the cultural context and storytelling techniques that made them resonate. I don't understand how you can watch this, she said during a particularly melodramatic K-drama moment. The emotions are so exaggerated. That's why I like it. Real emotions are confusing. These are emotions I can understand, because they are clearly labeled and dramatically expressed. You're strange. You married me. I did. Her expression grew thoughtful. I'm not sure that was the business decision I thought it was. Regretting it? No. She said it quickly, definitively. Not at all. The silence that followed felt weighted with things neither of them knew how to say. I's businesses continued to flourish. Nexus Security landed contracts with 3 national governments and over 60 Fortune 500 companies. His trading algorithms had evolved to the point where they could predict market movements with frightening accuracy. His secret account had grown to 9 figures, wealth that would make me independently wealthy by any measure. And still, nobody knew. To the world, to Sakura, to everyone except the Yamamoto parents who watched from their knowing distance, I was just a talented student living comfortably on my wife's family money. The duplicity bothered me sometimes. Not the hiding itself. I'd learned young that showing your full hand was dangerous, but the fact that I was hiding it from Sakura. Specifically, she'd been honest with me about everything. She trusted me with her company strategies, her fears, her dreams. And I was keeping a fundamental truth from her. You seem distracted lately, she observed one evening. Just thinking about projects. Anything you want to talk about? He almost told her then. Almost revealed everything. Nexus Security, the wealth, the secret life I'd built in the shadows of their arrangement. But fear held me back. Fear that she'd see it as betrayal. Fear that it would change how she looked at me. Fear that the comfortable friendship they'd built would shatter under the weight of my deception. Nothing important. I lied and hated himself for it. Chapter 12. Realizations. The shift happened so gradually that neither of them noticed until it was already complete. They stopped referring to the apartment as the apartment and started calling it home. Sakura's business contacts stopped being my colleagues and became our friends. When they attended social events together, the 3-year deadline, once a fixed point on the horizon, became something they stopped mentioning. I realized I was in love with her on a Tuesday afternoon. He was working in my office when she came home early, stressed from a particularly brutal board meeting. She found me at my desk, surrounded by monitors displaying code and market data, and simply collapsed into the chair beside me. Bad day? I asked. The worst. They rejected my sustainability initiative, called it too idealistic and not profitable enough. As if profit is the only thing that matters. It's not. Tell that to the board. Without thinking, I stood and pulled her to her feet. Come on. Where? Kitchen. I'm making comfort food, and you're going to help. I can't cook. You can follow instructions. That's all cooking is. He taught her how to make a simple pasta dish. Nothing fancy. Just garlic, olive oil, chili, flakes, and fresh pasta. She was terrible at it, cutting the garlic unevenly and burning the oil twice. But she laughed at her mistakes, and the tension gradually left her shoulders. They ate at the kitchen counter, her leaning against me companionably, and I realized with startling clarity that this was what I wanted. Not just for 3 years, not as a convenient arrangement, but forever. This woman who challenged me, understood me, made space for my strangeness while showing me her own. This feeling of home I'd never had before, the sense that someone saw me, really saw me, and chose to stay anyway. The realization terrified me. He'd spent my entire life avoiding emotional attachments because they hurt when they ended, and they always ended. His parents had abandoned me. Michelle had betrayed me. Every friendship had an expiration date. Why would this be different? Except Sakura was already different. She'd seen me at my worst, unconscious in a hospital, awkward at social events, obsessive about my projects to the point of forgetting to eat. And she'd stayed. She'd chosen me every day for nearly 2 years, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. What are you thinking about? She asked, noticing my distraction. Nothing important. Another lie. They were piling up, and I knew I'd have to face them eventually. Sakura had her own realization later that month. During a business conference in Osaka, I had stayed in Tokyo for exams, and she found herself constantly distracted, checking her phone for my messages, wanting to share observations with me, feeling incomplete without my presence. During a networking dinner, a colleague asked about her husband. He must be quite understanding, letting you travel so much for work. He doesn't let me do anything, Sakura replied coolly. We're partners, not owner and property. Of course. I just meant, it's rare to find someone so supportive. You're lucky. Later, alone in her hotel room, Sakura thought about that word. Lucky. She was lucky. But not in the way the colleague meant. She was lucky because I saw her as an equal. Because I never tried to diminish her achievements or compete with her success. Because I cooked her dinner after hard days and listened to her frustrations and made her laugh when she'd forgotten how. She was lucky because somewhere in the past 2 years, the convenient arrangement had become the most real thing in her life. And the 3-year deadline, once a safety net, had become a guillotine she couldn't escape. She loved me. She was in love with me. And she had no idea if I felt the same way, or if I was counting down the days until I could be free of the Yamamoto wealth and expectations. Chapter 13. The Approaching Deadline. With 8 months remaining on their 3-year agreement, the unspoken tension between them grew unbearable. They were more careful around each other, as if afraid That one wrong word would shatter the delicate peace they'd built. Sakura threw herself into work with renewed intensity, staying at the office later, traveling more frequently. I buried himself in code and projects, spending nights in my office until dawn, avoiding the moment when I'd have to face the truth of my feelings. They were both cowards in their own ways. Yuki noticed first. Now 12 years old and observant beyond her years, she cornered I. One afternoon when she came to visit. Are you and Sakurane fighting? No. Why would you think that? Because you're both acting weird. She said all the time, and you look like you're not. Sleeping. I'm fine. We're fine. You're lying. She crossed her arms, looking remarkably like her mother. I'm not a little kid anymore. I can tell when something's wrong. I sighed, closing my laptop. It's complicated, Yuki. Is it about the 3 years? He stared at her. How do you know about that? I heard Mom and Dad talking about it. They are worried you're going to leave when the time is up. They don't want you to go. I don't want you to go. Yuki, do you love her? The question was direct, innocent, devastating. Because she loves you. I can tell. And I think you love her too. So why are you both pretending you don't? Because it's not that simple. Why not? And I, confronted with the straightforward logic of a 12-year-old, had no good answer that evening. I decided to tell Sakura everything. About Nexus Security, about my wealth, about the life I'd built in secret. She deserved the truth, deserved to know who she was actually married to before they made any decisions about their future. He prepared dinner, her favorites, nothing fancy but made with care. He practiced what to say, how to explain, how to apologize for the deception. But when she came home, she looked so exhausted, so defeated, that my carefully prepared speech died in my throat. Bad day? I asked instead. The merger fell through. 6 months of work, gone because the other CEO couldn't handle negotiating with a woman. She slumped onto the couch. I'm tired. So tired of proving myself over and over. He sat beside her, and without thinking, pulled her against my chest. She stiffened in surprise. They'd never been physically affectionate beyond the occasional hand-holding. For appearances, but then relaxed into the embrace. You don't have to prove anything to me, I said quietly. I already know you're extraordinary. Do you? Yes. They stayed like that for a long time, and I pushed the confession to another day. She needed comfort now, not more complications. But time was running out, and they both knew it. Chapter 14, The Business Event. The Charity Gala was one of Tokyo's premier social events, a gathering of the elite where billion-dollar deals happened over champagne and careful words. Sakura attended as CEO of Yamamoto Industries. I accompanied her as her husband, wearing a tailored suit. That actually fit me now, my posture more confident than the nervous student who'd first entered such circles. Ben Nakamura was there, of course. He'd gotten worse over the past 2 years, my resentment festering into genuine malice. His own business ventures had failed repeatedly, while Sakura's company thrived, and I blamed I for my humiliation and loss. Well, Ben announced loudly as they entered, my voice carrying across the room. If it isn't the Yamamoto and their pet charity case. Several conversations paused. Eyes turned toward them with voyeuristic interest. Ben, Sakura said coldly, her hand tightening on Ai's arm. Grow up. I'm just stating facts. Everyone knows Ai's a kept man. No job, no prospects, no achievements of my own. Living off your money while pretending to be something Ai's not. I felt Sakura tense beside me, preparing her sharp retort. He gently touched her arm, shaking my head slightly. They discussed this. He'd asked her to let me handle Ben if confrontation came. It's fine, I murmured. It's not fine. Really, it's okay. He maintained my characteristic calm, refusing to give Ben the dramatic reaction I craved. The gathered elite watched with thinly veiled interest, waiting for entertainment that I refused to provide. Ben, emboldened by Ai's silence and the attention of the crowd, continued my tirade. What? Exactly do you contribute to that marriage? Anything? Or do you just sit at home playing video games while your wife earns the money and makes all the decisions? Ben, my father hissed from nearby, looking uncomfortable. That's enough. No, father, I want to hear it. What do you do? I? Besides spending Yamamoto money and pretending you belong in this world. I'm a student, I replied evenly. A student? Ben laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. Did everyone hear that? 25 years old and still a student. Living the dream, aren't you? While the rest of us actually work, actually build things, actually contribute to society. You're playing house with money that isn't yours. Several people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Even those who'd initially enjoyed the drama were beginning to see Ben's behavior as excessive, crude. But Ben was too far gone in my bitterness to notice. You a parasite, a leech. You saw an opportunity to trap a wealthy woman and took it. Everyone here knows it. The only question is why Sakura hasn't realized what everyone else can see. The master of ceremonies interrupted, stepping onto the small stage at the front of the room. His timing was either incredibly fortuitous or carefully planned. I would learn later it was the latter. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC's voice cut through the tension. Thank you for attending tonight's charity event. Before we proceed with the auction, I have the honor of announcing this year's recipient of the Excellence in Innovation Award. I felt a strange prickling at the back of my neck. He glanced at Takeshi and Akiko across the room. They were smiling in a way that made my stomach drop. This award recognizes an individual who has demonstrated extraordinary entrepreneurship, technological innovation, and social impact. The MC continued. This year's winner has revolutionized cybersecurity, created over 300 jobs, and donated millions to educational initiatives, all while maintaining complete anonymity. The room buzzed with interest. Ben was already smiling, assuming the award would go to someone my father knew, another connection to exploit. We are extraordinarily fortunate that this individual has agreed to finally reveal their identity tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating this year's Excellence in Innovation Award recipient. A spotlight swept across the room, and I knew, with absolute certainty, where it would land. The founder and CEO of Nexus Security, guardian of digital privacy for multiple governments and over 70 Fortune 500 companies. A visionary who saw vulnerabilities others missed and built solutions that changed the industry. Please, welcome Mr. Yamamoto. The spotlight stopped on my face. Silence. Absolute, crushing silence that stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then chaos erupted. Chapter 15. The Truth Revealed. I walked to the stage in the same calm manner I did everything, while flashbulbs exploded around me and whispers erupted like wildfire. He could feel hundreds of eyes on me, sensed the shock rippling through the room. Sakura stood frozen beside where I'd left her, her mouth slightly open, her expression unreadable. Ben looked like I'd been struck by lightning. The master of ceremonies handed I the award, a crystal sculpture that caught the light beautifully, probably worth more than my first laptop had been. Would you like to say a few words? The MC asked. I looked out at the sea of faces, the elite, the powerful, the people who had dismissed or ignored me for 2 years. He found Sakura in the crowd, saw the confusion and betrayal beginning to form in her eyes, and knew I'd made a terrible mistake in waiting this long. Thank you, I said simply, my voice carrying across the silent room. I'm glad my work has been useful. Perhaps you could tell us about Nexus Security, the MC prompted. Many people have wondered about the mysterious founder. How did a university student build one of the most trusted cybersecurity firms in Asia? I saw a need. Too many people and organizations were vulnerable to digital threats. I had the skills to help, so I did. He paused, choosing my words carefully. I maintained anonymity because I wanted my work judged on its merit, not my age or connections. I wanted to know if I could succeed based solely on what I could create, not who I was. married to, or who my family was, and your connection to the Yamamoto family. Sakura is my wife. The Yamamotos gave me opportunities one wouldn't have had. Otherwise, education, resources, support. I'm grateful for that. But Nexus Security is entirely my own work. Every line of code, every business decision, every success and failure, mine. He descended from the stage, aware of the hundreds of eyes following my movement, but focused only on Sakura. Her expression had shifted from shock to something harder to red, confusion mixed with hurt mixed with something that might have been anger. You, she started, her voice barely above a whisper. You built Nexus Security. Yes. The analysts have been trying to identify the founder for 18 months. I've been trying to figure out who our biggest competitor is. You've been sitting across from me at dinner every night, and you never, I know. I should have told you. Should have. Her voice rose slightly. We're supposed to be partners. We tell each other everything. How could you hide something this massive? Before I could answer, Ben appeared, my father trailing behind, looking deeply uncomfortable. His face was red, my movements jerky with barely controlled rage. This is a trick, Ben spat. Some kind of fraud. There's no way. It's not. Takeshi Yamamoto interrupted smoothly, stepping forward with Akiko. They'd clearly been waiting for this moment. We've known for 6 months. Our son-in-law is quite remarkable. Son-in-law. Ben seized on the term like a weapon. You mean your daughter's convenient arrangement? Everyone knows it's a marriage of convenience to avoid her engagement to me. 3 years, wasn't it? Some kind of business deal between you two. The crowd leaned in, hungry for more drama. Sakura's face paled, and I saw the exact moment she realized their private arrangement was about to become public spectacle. Tell them, Ben continued, my voice venomous. Tell everyone how you trapped Sakura. With your sub-story. How you manipulated the situation after saving her sister. How this whole marriage is just. I saved my sister's life. I interrupted quietly but firmly, my voice cutting through Ben's rant, and the Yamamoto offered to repay me. I asked for a house and a laptop. They offered more. Sakura and I made an arrangement that benefited us both. Yes, it started as a practical solution to complicated problems. That's true. He turned to look at Sakura, ignoring the crowd, focusing only on her. But some way, along the way, it became real for me. I didn't notice when it happened. Maybe it was the first time you laughed at one of my terrible jokes. Maybe it was when you stayed up all night helping me debug code even though you had a board meeting at 6 a.m. Maybe it was the day I realized I cooked your favorite foods because seeing you smile had become the best part of my day. The room had gone silent again, but this time it was a different quality of silence, attentive, rather than shocked. I should have told you about Nexus Security, I continued, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. I was wrong to hide it. I was scared that you'd see it as betrayal, scared that it would change things between us, scared that the one real thing in my life would turn out to be as conditional as everything else has been. Sakura started, but I kept going, needing to say it all before I lost my nerve. I don't want a divorce in 8 months. I don't want this to end. The 3-year agreement was supposed to be a safety net, but it's become a prison because I can't imagine my life without you in it. I'm in love with you, Sakura. I have been for months, maybe longer. I just didn't know how to tell you, didn't know if you felt the same, didn't know if I had any right to want more than what we agreed to. Tears were streaming down Sakura's face now, but she was smiling through them, laughing and crying simultaneously in a way that made my heart stutter. You brilliant, impossible, emotionally constipated man, she said, closing the distance between them. I've been in love with you since you burned my breakfast trying to make heart-shaped pancakes for our first anniversary. Maybe even before that. That was a year ago. Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you? She cupped my face in her hands. We're both idiots. Agreed. She kissed me then, Right there in front of Tokyo's elite, in front of Ben and my humiliation, in front of her parents and their knowing smiles. Kissed me like she'd been wanting to for months, like she was claiming me publicly and permanently. When they finally pulled apart, applause filled the room. Even Ben had retreated, deflated, and forgotten, slipping away with my father before my humiliation could become more complete. So, Sakura said, her forehead resting against mine, about that divorce clause in our contract. We should probably amend it. To what? Forever, unless one of us turns out to be secretly terrible. Which, to be fair, I might be. I did hide a multi-million-dollar company from you. Billion, Takashi called from nearby, looking amused. Nexus Security is valued at several billion, actually. I blinked. What? Did you not check your company's valuation recently? Akiko asked, smiling. Dear boy, you're one of the wealthiest young entrepreneurs in Asia. We've been helping quietly. Of course, smoothing a few paths, making sure the right people saw your proposals. But the success is entirely yours. You knew. Sakura turned to her parents, surprised. For months, Takashi confirmed. We were waiting for me to tell you himself. Though we were prepared to intervene if you came too close to the 3-year deadline without either of you confessing your feelings. The award ceremony timing. I asked. Our intervention, Akiko admitted. You two are brilliant in so many ways, but apparently hopeless at communication. We decided to force the issue. Sakura laughed, a sound of pure joy and relief. You manipulated us. We gave you a push, her mother corrected. The rest was all you. Chapter 16, New Beginnings. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of revelations and readjustments. I and Sakura spent long nights talking, filling in all the gaps their silence had created. He showed her everything about Nexus Security, the code, the business structure, the clients, the innovations I'd been working on. She shared her fears about their marriage ending, her struggles with vulnerability, the way she'd fallen in love despite her best efforts to keep things practical. I thought I was protecting myself, she admitted one evening as they sat on their balcony, overlooking Tokyo, by keeping emotional distance, by not admitting what I felt. But all I did was waste time being scared instead of being happy. I did the same thing, I said, pulling her closer. Spent so much energy hiding and protecting myself that I almost lost the best thing that's ever happened to me. We're quite a pair. We are. They rewrote their agreement, not on paper this time, but in the quiet promises of everyday choices. Separate bedrooms became a single shared space. Parallel lives merged into a true partnership. The walls they'd both built so carefully came down, brick by brick, replaced by something stronger, trust earned through time and honesty. I officially revealed my identity as Nexus Security's founder in a press conference that Sakura helped me prepare for. The tech world exploded with interest in the mysterious young CEO who'd built an empire while pretending to be an ordinary student. Interview requests poured in. He declined most of them, accepting only a few carefully chosen opportunities to talk about cybersecurity innovation rather than my personal story. You're a terrible celebrity, Sakura teased after I turned down my 5th magazine cover. Opportunity. I built the company to solve problems, not to be famous. I know. That's one of the reasons I love you. He never got tired of hearing her say that. The wedding, their real wedding, happened 6 months later. Not a quiet government office this time, but a beautiful ceremony that honored both their cultures and families. Yuki was the flower girl, crying happy tears. Takashi walked Sakura down the aisle with obvious pride. Even I's Uncle Marcus came from back home, looking overwhelmed but delighted to see my nephew so happy. You did good, kid, Marcus said during the reception, pulling I into a tight hug. Better than I ever imagined. Because of you, I replied. You gave me a chance when no one else would. Everything I have now started with you believing I was worth saving. You are always worth it. I just gave you a place to grow. Ben didn't attend, naturally. Last they'd heard, I'd moved to Singapore to work for my father's company, away from the constant reminders of my humiliation. I felt no satisfaction in my defeat, just relief that the chapter was closed. Epilogue. 5 years later, I sat in my home office, reviewing code for Nexus Security's latest project, an AI-driven threat detection system that would revolutionize how organizations protected themselves from emerging cyber threats. The technology was ambitious, possibly years ahead of anything competitors were attempting. Aini, Sakurane says dinner's ready, and you promised you wouldn't work late tonight. He looked up to find Yuki in the doorway. She was 17 now, brilliant and confident, already taking advanced courses at university in both business and computer science. She decided she wanted to bridge both worlds, like her brother and sister-in-law. I'm not working late. I'm working exactly on time. It's 7:30. Is it? He glanced at my watch, genuinely surprised. Time still got away from me when I was deep in code. Yuki grabbed my hand with the familiarity of family, dragging me toward the dining room. You're impossible. Sakurane says that's why she loves you, but I think she's crazy. I think she might be too, I agreed, smiling. Dinner was warm chaos. Sakura told animated stories about her day, a successful merger she'd negotiated, a new sustainability initiative the board had finally approved. I described my latest breakthrough in AI security architecture. Yuki complained about a classmate who'd stolen her research ideas, then asked for advice on handling academic theft with grace. Takeshi and Akiko, who'd started joining them twice a week for dinner, argued good-naturedly about their retirement plans. Akiko wanted to travel, Takeshi wanted to start the charitable foundation. Why not both? Sakura suggested practically, because your father is stubborn. I learned from the best, Takeshi replied, winking at my daughter. After dinner, I and Sakura stood on their balcony, looking out over Tokyo's glittering lights. This had become their ritual, a quiet moment together after the day's noise, a chance to simply exist side by side. Do you ever regret it? Sakura asked, leaning against the railing. The arrangement. How did we start? Every day, I replied. She turned, surprised and hurt, until she saw my smile, the one I reserved only for her, the one that transformed my usually serious face into something softer. Because if we hadn't made that arrangement, I would have missed all of this. You, us, this ridiculous, impossible thing we built together. You're such a terrible romantic. I'm trying. I read 3 books on romance last month to improve. She laughed, the sound I'd learned to create through trial and error, the sound that had become my favorite in the world. How's your uncle? Good. The house I bought me is apparently too big, but I refuses to move to something smaller. Says I needs the space for when we give me grandchildren to spoil. Is I hinting? Aggressively. How do you feel about that? Sakura asked, her tone careful. They discussed children, in abstract terms but never seriously. I pulled her close, wrapping my arms around her waist. I feel like I spent most of my life believing I didn't deserve happiness. That love was something other people got, not me. And then you crashed into my life, literally, through your sister's accident, and proved me wrong. So that's a yes. That's a let's talk about it seriously, which is more commitment than I've ever made to anything except you and code. She turned in my arms, rising on her toes to kiss me. I love you. You are brilliant. Impossible man. I love you too, even though you still can't cook. I don't need to cook. I married a chef. I'm a programmer who learned to cook. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the city lights blur and sharpen as evening deepened into night. Inside, Yuki was showing Takeshi and Akiko something on her laptop, probably her latest project, knowing her ambition and drive. Do you ever think about that day? Sakura asked quietly. The accident. Sometimes. I think about the split-second decision that changed everything. If I'd been 5 seconds later to the bus stop, If I'd been looking at my phone instead of around me. If I'd hesitated even one moment, we wouldn't be here. No, and I can't imagine any version of my life that doesn't have you in it now. That's terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. Welcome to love, she said, smiling against my chest. It's always terrifying. That's how. You know it's real. Through the window behind them, Yuki called out that dessert was ready. She'd made matcha cheesecake, one of the recipes I had taught her. They went inside together, hand in hand, leaving the quiet balcony behind. The boy who understood everything, but emotion had finally learned the most important lesson. Some things couldn't be programmed or predicted or solved with logic alone. Some things had to be felt, experienced, risked. And for the first time in my life, I was not just okay with that. I was grateful for it. Inside, surrounded by family and laughter and the warmth of belonging, I caught Sakura's eye across the table. She smiled at me, that private smile that was my alone, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that all of this, was worth every risk I'd ever taken. The walls I'd built to protect himself had become windows instead, letting light in, letting love in, letting life in, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The end.